Welcome to the Creative Plan Podcast Network. Join us as we share our favorite RPGs, one-shot games, tabletop games, reviews of items, and convention panels, and other exciting things that we run into from time to time. Sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, this is Kelly, aka Trixie from Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion to Ragnarok story, and Tilda Wimblewick from D&D Journey of the 5th Edition. First off, I would just like to say thank you to everyone for listening to our varied adventures, as well as for rating us on iTunes and rpgpodcast.com. If you haven't rated us yet, we would greatly appreciate it if you could. And if you're looking for more ways to support our efforts, we are now on Patreon, a great site where you can help us continue making more podcasts, as well as some special surprises for our patrons. If you can, please look us up at www.patreon.com/cppn. Every little bit helps. And again, thank you for listening.
It's Jinx Cosplay and I should have done like fanfare next time. This is the first time we're doing this panel, so let's see how it goes. So my name is Jessika. I'm Jinx Cosplay. I've been cosplaying since 2001. Today I'm dressed as Academy Diva from Overwatch. So welcome.
Hi everybody. I'm Lina. I'm going to start using this. I'm Thermo Sidekick. That's my new name.
That's a good one.
Thermo support. Thermo support. So we do thermo cosplay. Sam's the badass, and I'm her sidekick. I'm the
She's a badass
Robin
too.
to her Batman, which is awesome because she does all the hard work,
But she's
and I
more
just
like-
sit here and like.
She's more like the Red Hood rather than just Robin.
Yeah, I try. But yeah, we've been cosplaying since 2014, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I'm Sam of ThermoCosplay. And yeah, we've been cosplaying since 2014, and I'm more of like an Instructables tutorial person. So if there's
How
something
many
like
followers do you have on Instructables?
110,000 now.
So if you need help,
Yeah.
go to Instructables.
I was trying to figure out why Autodesk kept giving me free memberships, and then I looked at my following count and my visits, and I'm like, oh. It all started with one little basic Warbler tutorial that, like, apparently the Warbler company shared, and it just exploded.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah. So.
All right. So based on this history of cosplay, we're going to go all the way up until the point that I cosplayed, and then I'm going to try and go into a little more personal experience, since by that point, cosplay's everywhere. Not personal, but yeah, I'll touch on the personal experience. So, as you can see here, history of cosplay, we're going to go all the way back to, actually, I think it's 1939 is when the first cosplay happened.
Yeah.
These are some random pictures. I'm sorry they're so blurry. They're perfectly clear on my screen. So you can see throughout time how cosplay has evolved, and we're going to talk about it. So, if you don't know what cosplay is, here it is. What is cosplay? So the word cosplay is actually a mashup of costume and play, and it was coined by Nobuyuki Takahashi, who is an owner of an anime studio, Studio Hard. He had visited Worldcon in 1984, so Worldcon was kind of like the only place that, it was a sci-fi convention, and it was really the only one. In short, it's essentially dressing up as a fan dresses up in costume as a character, both fictional and real, from a fandom, typically anime, video games, sci-fi, and comic books. And there's no really rules to cosplay, but over the years there was a lot of judgment. So no official rules, but we'll get to that. So here we go. When did cosplay start? There's always this discussion about cosplay started in the 1700s, 1800s, and this and that. Yes, people have been wearing costumes for a long time. So costume existed as far back as 15th century. They had masquerades and pageants, and cosplay took a little bit of a different turn from what traditional costuming was. So you can see here the first recorded instance of cosplay. This is Forrest J. Ackerman and his partner Myrtle R. Douglas. She actually made both of the costumes, and they called them futuristic costumes. So they weren't a specific character. They were based on, the style of science fiction. And they went to Worldcon 1939, which was the first Worldcon. He actually went thinking that you're supposed to wear a costume. And he was the only one who wore a costume. So good for him though, because he, him and his partner are pioneers. So going back to cosplay from the 19th century onward, costume became popular pretty much everywhere, featuring mostly generic costumes, kind of like your Dracula and your witch, generic costumes. They could be period costumes, national costumes, object concepts. So not really going into any kind of like fandoms or literature.
No, that wasn't very popular. And then sometimes you see science fiction, but it was more like the take on. And these two actually looped in their other two journalist friends. So then they're like, next year you're going to do it too. And they actually made costumes for them and made the next Worldcon, they all dressed up together as like a little group.
That's how it happens, isn't it?
Yeah,
You just start gathering more people.
Yeah, who here does cosplay?
Okay.
Now, did you start cosplaying just because you saw somebody do it, or did you have a friend that kind of roped you into it, or helped you get into it?
Or are you the friend that ropes people in?
Had a wife.
Yeah.
I'm really your wife.
That's usually how it starts. It's like somebody ropes you into it, or you see somebody else do it. You're like, I want to do that. So it's like a virus.
Yeah, it is.
It's the best virus.
It's the virus that kills all the bad things in your life.
So we're gonna kind of go over these quickly, the different decades of cosplay. So the first half of the 20th century. I'm surprised there's pictures actually, because
There weren't a lot. There are a few, yeah.
but there are like barely pictures of anything in general, and now they've got pictures of costumes. So you can see in there's not really anything specific. We've got spooky witch looking thing, a cowboy, but it still had the same kind of atmosphere. So obviously, following Forrest and Myrtle, everyone started getting inspired, which, as you do, started dressing up as their favorite characters all at the future Worldcons, and they started making masquerades and contests, and then it eventually became part of the regular programming. Even the guests that they would invite would come in cosplay. So Forrest J. Agerman was invited to several of them. He always came in costume. Early Worldcon masquerade balls featured actually a band and dancing and food, as they do, in the 30s and 40s.
Which, I mean, that needs to come back. Because, I mean,
Yes.
food and dancing and fun. Like, come on. You compete, and then we all party.
Yes,
Yeah.
I agree. We need to bring back the masquerade ball.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, but back then, contestants would just walk across the stage, or they would just clear an area of the dance floor. So it wasn't a huge production.
No, it's more than just showing off their work, and then they would move across.
Yeah, no real.
It was like a walk-on. That was it.
Like a
Yeah.
fashion show. Moving into the 50s, 60s, and 70s, they did start to make rules. I mean, obviously with masquerades, it wasn't the overall rules. Because the first new contestant at Worldcon Masquerade was in 1952. But yeah, they went away with that. They were like, no costume is no costume. So that was the no costume is no costume, and it banned full nudity, although partial nudity was still allowed, as long as it was a legitimate representation of your character.
Like Red Sonja became really popular, and I mean, it just took over a lot of like the science fiction conventions and Worldcon, and you see a lot of women do Red Sonja because it was,
It was the
sexy.
Yeah.
So it was allowed.
I mean, you can see this. Is this Colossal? The character's name?
Are you talking about the thing?
Oh yeah, was it the Thing? It looks like Colossal.
It looks like Fang.
It looks like him.
That's
That's how the
Maybe
early.
I'm too like.
The early thing kind of looks like that. He looks a little like
yeah.
blobbish.
I was like, that looks like a very
Plus, that's
like,
pretty impressive for how old that costume
Yeah. that looks like a very like watered down Colossal. So, okay, all right. So as you can see here, sexy cosplays always existed. Star Wars always a huge subject
Yeah.
for cosplay. I mean, even back, and I don't know this thing, that green thing that looked amazing. You can see that like torso is on his shoulders. So that was really
That looks like a lizard person. It looks like maybe it's from, oh gosh, is it? Not Julius Strangler. Is it? Wait, which one had the lizard people?
I don't know which one.
Anyways, no, but there were a lot of them too were based off of like science fiction movies too,
Yeah.
and those were really popular in like the 60s and 70s.
And they did a lot of their own designs
Yeah,
too.
yeah,
Like
yeah.
this would fit into the science
I mean,
world.
think about the materials they were working with people.
Yeah. I don't know what that
There wasn't a
thing
whole
is
lot of
made of.
synthetic stuff like that. There is
Yeah.
so.
It actually looks like tile shards.
Yeah,
I hope that's not.
it might be.
So-
They made their own textile.
Yeah, that's true. So obviously, some other rules that were instilled at the 20th Worldcon. There was a blaster that fired real flames, so that obviously was banned, and that's kind of now a normal thing. 'Cause, we don't want to burn things down. Somebody was made of had a costume completely made out of peanut butter. So those were kind of things.
They're delicious.
And it was actually an underground comic character called the Turd, so actually it existed. So there were things where they kind of had to like make some guidelines, like don't wear food, Although Lady Gaga was like, I don't care what you say. So food, odors, messy stuff were banned, which I think we can all agree is
Yeah.
And
standard.
actually, like the next slide, this is where comic books became like right there.
Yeah.
When Superman started getting really popular, that's when costumes began to start like exploding in the science fiction area.
I know, and people get so mad over sexy cosplay. I'm like, look, it's been around.
It's
longer than you've been alive.
Like Supergirl legit looked like that at the beginning. Like I mean, and there were so many different versions of Wonder Woman and like
so many of the old sci-fis and just like like the old paperback novels that had like like the woman in the jungle kind of a thing, with like the real sexy and all that kind of stuff from like the 60s and stuff like that. Women used to go nuts with that sort of thing. Which
they thought they were
awesome.
doing it for men. No, actually they were doing it for women.
Yeah.
So the earliest known instance of cosmetic convention in the United Kingdom, so now we're kind of branching out, was at the London Science Fiction Convention in 1953. But it was only part of a play, so it wasn't, inviting people to dress up or anything like that. So the 15th World Con brought its first official convention masquerade to the UK, and in 1960, EasterCon in London is probably the first British-based convention to hold official, and they call it fancy dress in England. We just call it, costuming. So they called it fancy dress party, where they actually scheduled it. And you can see here in the top right is Rocky Horror Picture Show. Is anyone familiar with Rocky Horror Picture Show? Yeah? So they actually encourage audiences to come dress and interact for free admission. So, of course, when you're offering something for someone to dress up, it becomes huge. Now, obviously, if you've ever been to a show, and if you haven't, just be prepared.
Yeah.
It's like an experience.
That's the reason to go see it. Like, you don't go see it to see the movie. I mean, you do.
You can
but
watch the movie
like,
at home.
If you're
it's
ready
the
for
experience.
you're a virgin to seeing their show.
Yeah.
Be
Oh,
here.
don't
If
tell
you ever
them.
tried to watch the movie and you're like, why does everybody like this? Go see the live
Yeah.
show. People go nuts, and it's
All
fun.
about the live show. So now we're getting to 1970, San Diego Comic-Con. As we know it now, is probably, I believe, the biggest fan convention in the world.
Except for Japan.
Japan
has one that's
yeah.
pretty huge,
Okay.
yeah.
But obviously, if you say San Diego Comic-Con to anyone at a convention, they pretty much have heard of it. When it started, it was called Golden State Comic-Con. It was a 3-day event held at a hotel in 1970, and they actually had held a smaller event a few months prior to kind of get a feel. So it was a 1-day fundraising event, and then it went successful, and they went into their 3-day event, which I think is amazing because they're like, here's our first con for 3 days. So that's pretty.
People were like, yeah, this is awesome, let's go.
Pretty ambitious, but obviously it worked. So their first con had 145 attendees. Forrest J. Ackerman was a guest, of course, because he's huge still. And after one more name change, they did San Diego West Comic Con. They stayed with the San Diego Comic Con name. By the late 70s, attendance was already topping out at 6,000 people. So that is quick growth. That's
Yeah,
super
and now San Diego Comic Con sees anywhere from 170,000 to 200,000. It always is going to fluctuate because you have on years and off years, but like 200,000, I think their max is 250, wasn't it?
Yeah, because they've been talking about moving it because
Well, they tickets sell out, so they like cap it. There would be more people.
Yeah, and that's the
out.
thing too is they've had to start like reducing how many people they can allow in due to city restrictions and the problems that San Diego's been having and putting more
In the
pressure on them.
convention center,
Yeah,
Like fire code, little things.
little things like people maybe not dying.
you're going to see an awesome picture here later that will blow your mind. So SCCC's first masquerade ball was in 1974. Yep, and the winner was actress Ricky Stevens, dressed as Vampirella, and Forrest J. Ackerman, of course, is the creator of Vampirella. Now, a photographer saw Stevens in her Vampirella costume, and that kind of led her into becoming an actress. It led her for a non-speaking role, and then she went on and on from there. And she actually attributes winning this contest to her acting career. So, again, people are always like critical of cosplay celebrities, but hey, she might be the first one. So, yeah.
And I mean, if it gets you a job, sweet.
Yeah, exactly. And again, and this costume is still worn today.
There are people, I mean, this is probably one of the most popular ones, and every time I see someone doing it, I'm like, you are brave, you
Yeah.
It's so cool. And
I really hope you know what fashion tape is.
It's just like, yeah.
Yeah, so that was incredible. I mean, she wasn't an actress at the time, obviously. So yeah, I mean, there are people now that can attribute cosplay, that started their career, and they were doing it in the 70s. So here we go. So we're going to move on to Japan in the 80s. As you know, Japan popularized cosplay. So college students have been dressing up as their favorite character since the 70s, so they've been doing it for a long time. Of course, when Takahashi came back from Worldcon, he wrote an article about it, and he has these pictures. This isn't his article, but this is a clearer picture of another article. In the center, you can see, was astounded by how many people were in costume. And he encouraged people in Japan to do this. So he wrote a call to action. You must now cosplay. Look at these Americans.
It needs to happen.
Yes. And of course, being, head of an anime studio, he's like, good marketing.
Yeah.
Hey guys, dress up as my characters.
Yeah.
Buy more comics.
And we get free advertising.
Yeah, I mean, that was super smart. I mean, it took a couple years for it to actually, catch on, but he started it there to make it popular. Of course, like I said, they've been doing it for a long time. There was no name attached to it. So when he coined the cosplay name, there it was. It was born. So let's see here. Oh, and then at this time, Gundam was released and Urusei Zero was released. If you guys know Inuyasha, Ranma 1/2, it's the same creator of Urusei Zero. That's actually me because you can see that this cop character is still popular with a lot of
And
people.
it's been around 81, was that right?
There was somebody dressed here as the other day.
When I was in Urusei Yatsura, there was like 81 or 82, it was early 80s,
Yes.
really early.
Yeah. And that actually helped move the cosplay movement. I'm not sure why. I couldn't find out why, but I mean, they're awesome. I love those animes.
It's their hair color. Come on,
Yeah.
everyone
Yeah.
was sweet.
Yeah.
I want green hair and purple hair.
And I
blue
think
hair.
that's about the time that anime started doing the crazy hair colors
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
It was right
they
in
were
the 80s.
transitioning to it.
And
Yeah.
they started being a lot
Right.
more vibrant.
Because 60s and 70s was all brown and black hair, or
Natural.
sometimes white.
Yeah.
But
And
it
they
was
were wearing
super-
more normal clothes,
They were wearing
too.
normal clothes. By between 82 and 87, there was this huge just change in stylization, and it exploded and it branched out in all different directions, and it was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can see why that maybe cosplayers were like, sweet.
This is all had that moment, right? You see something, you're like, I want to cosplay that. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, that's going on the list. It's too long, but it's going
It's
on the
like,
list.
the list is no more! Stop it! All those memes you see that are my cosplay, another cosplay, they're so true.
Yeah.
I'm just why? And there was even a manga artist, Junichi Nakahara. He actually encouraged this by providing full body fashion illustrations of his characters. So you'll see this a little bit later. And he even would make items that the characters would wear that people could purchase because he was also a fashion designer.
And that is how you make money.
Yes, so he was an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because that didn't become popular until much later. So, but back in the 70s and 80s, as you can imagine, it was really difficult to obtain anime. There wasn't so much overseas trading. Obviously, there was no internet.
You basically
public
sent a friend
internet.
to Japan, they grabbed a whole suitcase full of stuff, and then they brought it back.
Yes, I mean, typically at your conventions
Yeah.
is where you would see anime.
Yeah.
And probably the only time you might watch it.
Yeah.
So, those were that's why those were so
Even in the 90s,
Yes.
it was, I was still pretty young, but I started getting it from specialty shops that the guy would literally leave for a week, once every quarter, and his shop would be closed for that entire week. He would get 2 suitcases full of stuff and come back and restock his shop.
So if we go into the 90s, as Sam was saying, that's when anime started being, imported a lot more. We saw Ranma 1/2 was Ranma 1/2 who is the same creator as Urusei Yatsura, so we can see that these are really popular. And this is Dragon Quest and Samurai Pizza Cats. Do you remember Samurai Pizza Cats?
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
That was adorable.
And of course, Sailor Moon.
Yeah, Sailor Moon. But these three, so in the 1990s, it was basically when anime reached mainstream popularity in the US market, and they were more called Japanimation.
Yeah.
Manga and anime came a little bit later. They knew it as manga and anime, but they just kind of grouped it all as Japanimation. So you could find them in niche stores, like Sam said. I remember going to our local comic book store. It was called Stalking Moon. I still remember, up in Phoenix. And they would have this turnstile, and there would be VHSs you could rent. So you would get the VHS and rent one at a time, and then come back next week. So it was pretty difficult to be able to watch everything. It's not like Netflix where you can just watch it
So
all the time.
cosplayers and that, they would buy those and they would pause and just leave it on pause for a while. And I knew people that had damaged their VHS because it had stayed on pause for so long, where
Oh,
they kept
man.
rewinding it and watching the same part to try and get all the details, that they had to go back and keep buying more videos because they were just I wore out this part of the tape, but I need it.
Yeah, that is insane. So a lot of anime wasn't translated. or they wanted to make it easier for fans to obtain. So people would do fan subs. So basically,
oh yeah.
So fan subs are basically, you know, they would do the voiceover, be the voice actor of the anime, and then they would distribute that. A lot of times they were free too. I came across a lot of fan subs that were free, and I was floored. Like, I couldn't believe that they just loved it so much that they wanted to spread it. So yeah, a lot of fan subs were free. They would just get in groups and then send them all out at once.
Yeah. But the English wasn't always the best, so you had to like get kind of interpretive, like, you probably mean this.
Yeah. and obviously they're all pros too, so there's that. But hey,
we appreciated it.
You take what you can get.
But these costumes were like, when they were really popular in the 90s, and then they had like a quiet period, and now I feel like retro anime and cosplay is exploding again.
But it's like fashion in Japan, isn't it? It's always coming back.
Yeah, because I'm seeing more and more Ranma. I'm seeing a lot of like old Gundams. I've seen a couple of dirty flashes.
There's always Gundams. Gundams have never stopped.
And I've seen like Akira's recently.
Yes.
And it's just like, this is pretty cool because these were things that like, and I think it's easier now too because some of these more complicated, like the 90s had really complicated characters, and now there's more like access to materials so you can actually build these things out.
Yeah, because it was animation. With animation, you can do anything. They're like, yeah, let's give this guy 4 arms, and then the cosplayer's like, what?
Like, I got cardboard, does that work?
Hey, they may too.
Has anybody ever done the gravity does not work that way costume when you're trying to rebuild something from
this is why some of us
a...
actually go to drag queens and say, how do you make that work? Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. So the internet started to become public.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was making all of the stuff easier to obtain. Newsgroups like Rec Arts, Anime Mist, and this is my personal experience. That's where I hung out. You know, IRC helped spread all of these anime, all these threads, reviews. People were just posting so
People
much.
People were snapping images and just sharing them in every forum that they could.
And
like, here's the turnaround.
And that was another thing with like the pictures, because I would keep folders. I would download as many pictures as I could find of my favorite character, and I would have one whole folder of like, and it was just, that was what you found. And it took so long to download one picture. Gosh, it took like 5 hours to download one picture.
I forgot about dial-up, guys.
And then you couldn't even multitask on your computer either because it would just kill everything. So, but it was growing. So, my two brothers were much older than I was. So they had jobs before I did. They were also, you know, geeks like I was, and they actually brought me a lot of my anime and video game experience. So I was pretty lucky in that aspect. They've been fans since the 70s, so I usually source it off of them. As far as cosplay, the 90s was a really weird time. I'm not sure where it was like in other parts of the world, but in the U.S., it was a transition. People were kind of like adapting to all of this new information and everything they could find, and it was a little bit elitist, I do have to say. So, not a fancy time. I really couldn't find anything on the 90s. I even found threads that are like, what happened to the 90s? And you know, people just gave their personal experience because there really wasn't much going on.
Yeah, and a lot of the cosplay that was going on in the 90s too, people kept it to themselves, and now they market it because some of them have become so big that it's their business, and they come back and they take those images from the 90s. They're like, oh, look at this retro stuff that I had, and then they reintroduce it, and fans really like that. It's like, oh my gosh, wait, you've been doing it this long? That's really cool. But you're right, it's so hard to find cosplay images from the 90s. It's really bizarre until you get to the late 90s, like closer to, like, I'd say like 97, 98, 99, closer to the 2000 mark. Then you find more, but between like 90, like between 89 and like 95, 96, there's just like this blank space.
But the 90s was a lot of gatekeeping in general too.
Yeah. I feel like this is about the time that booth babes started becoming a thing, which actually is funny because like I feel like now that's really petered off. Like it's not nearly as much of a thing, but like conventions were starting to become more popular, but they were, you know, like a little bit pigeonholed for like only a certain group. Not super, but I think that falls into that elitist thing, you know, is like, you know, so like they were trying to market to certain people, and you know, it's
trying
like
to draw in more crowds.
Just like social media, you know, you end up with like in an echo chamber. So like the more of these kind of people that are showing up conventions, the less other people are wanting to show up. And I'm glad we fixed that. Now all the people are at cons again.
Yes. And as she mentioned, booth babes. I mean, they're actually quite controversial because at first they were models who knew nothing about, you know, the material. But we'll get to that a little bit later. So that's what they started with that. So transition phase in the 90s. So now we're going into the 00s.
Early 2000s.
I wanted to keep the same like pattern as like, well, actually I said 1990. Okay, never mind. Okay, so the 2000s. I actually started in 2001, like I said. And as Sam mentioned, this is kind of when the late 90s, early 2000s, where it started really gaining a lot of momentum. More people
companies realized they could profit off of it.
Yes.
Yeah.
So more people were getting online. They were still using fake names though. Like, I don't know if anyone was online that long ago where you didn't tell anyone your real name.
Oh yeah.
That's weird.
They still had handles.
Yes.
And it wasn't even like ThermoCosplay or Jinx Cosplay. It wasn't like that. It was like Joe of the Sarah Sahara.
Yeah.
It was something really weird, so you just didn't know who they were.
Like I actually when I was on the internet at 13, I had to use my brother's handle, and his was Roquefort cheese. Some people would call me Hey Roquefort, and I'm like, no. Sorry. So I would make my own like signature, like Jinx. This is Jinx. I've been using Jinx for so long. But yeah, the internet was a really fun and interesting place back then. I still have fond memories of early internet. So cosplay.com actually started in 2002. Has anyone been to cosplay.com? Yeah. No? Wow, really?
If you go, it's interesting to go there because you can like watch how it's grown and changed. Like you go all the way back into its
If you can
archives.
find it, there's so many.
Oh, you go to cosplay.com, scroll all the way down to the bottom, look at their site map, and find their archives. It's really cool.
Yes.
And it's basically like it's a message board because it's been around since that was really a lot of things. So it's a good place to like get people's take on like, hey, how did you figure out how to do this? And how did you figure out how to do that? And I think now a lot of us end up using like the RPF, the Prop Forum, and some other. And there's so many resources out there, but it's still a pretty good resource, especially for anime type stuff.
Yeah. So message boards were huge back then. That was basically the only place. Well, and like IRC was still around. That was like the most popular place to converse with other people. I remember being on those forums, learning so much. Making friends. There was a lot going on on cosplay.com. I think now it's kind of just become like a museum of cosplay because there's not that much going on there, like she said. But when I saw it grow, they started having shops pop up. And then people could start selling their own stuff on there, and it was really a pioneer in cosplay websites. And it was kind of really like Samsung, the only source for cosplay.
Yeah, and it was also international, so it was like global.
Yes.
So you could communicate with people all across the world, which was really helpful because some people had more access to things that you didn't.
Yeah, absolutely. So I mean, it was really cool. All of a sudden, you're like, "Ooh, I have a friend in Europe or whatever, giving me cosplay tips."
I would like to just I realized I skipped over this because I wasn't sure quite where to throw it, but can we all give a shout out to all the Trekkies out there who have been doing this forever and never get any love, and they were doing it when it was totally not cool, and they're like, screw you, I'm still gonna do this. I love them so much for keeping that alive, but then I feel like they were also a really good mecca of, because I feel like we were seeing a lot of cons become a guy space. Not completely, but they were kind of doing that, and the Star Trek forums and the sci-fi forums really seem to maintain a co-ed, and even kids and stuff like that. I feel like they maintained that even when the regular Comic-Con started to get a little bit pigeonholy. So, love my Trekkies.
I mean,
I'm sorry.
Because obviously, fandoms, comic books, video games were always marketed to men. Back then, they never expected women to be interested in it. And obviously, we see this trend kind of go away. So as you can see here, pictures up here, when you cosplayed back in early 2000s, there were probably 5 different styles of wigs. Those are 2 of them. This is the most popular, the middle, the Godiva, because obviously it was so long, so we cut it to the length that you needed. The qualities were pretty low.
But you could paint them and dye them and spray them.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and I'll get to that one next. And then the boots, those are my boots. A lot of times if you needed those crazy looking shoes that are in the anime and manga were usually dancer and stripper shoes. So it was a little bit weird when you went into the dance store or, the lingerie store looking for shoes. I just need shoes. So there were very, very limited resources. There was actually an anime called Cosplay Complex that was released as an OEB series. I think there were 4 or 5 episodes in 2002. So even then, Japan was ahead of us, even though we had started it. But Japan was way ahead of us in terms of cosplay. So it follows this girl doing cosplay competitions. I've actually never seen it, but now I need to. So that was kind of incredible that anime kind of took a full circle back. So yeah. So back onto limited resources. The all-magical Sharpie!
Sharpie!
Yes, so obviously limited resources and limited varieties. I can't even remember where I got this wig. I can't remember at all if I ordered it or bought it. But yeah, so the wigs only came in like 7 different colors. So if you wanted a certain color, you colored it yourself with Sharpies. We didn't seem to think of anything else better. So, for example, the long curly wig in the center is my sister. She would kill me if she knew that I put her in this panel. Trying on my wig that I had just purchased. And on the right, as you can see what I turned it into. And that's basically what cosplayers had to do. We had to take whatever it was and make it into whatever we needed it to. It's not like today where you can just go and click buy, everything's already styled. And that was more trial and error. There wasn't a lot, again, not a lot of experience in styling wigs at the time, so I just kind of took a flat iron and I was like, let's see what happens. So luckily it did not go up in flames, and it worked out. My sister on the other side, this is Kane Yuri from Dirty Pair Flash. So my sister on the other side, we actually had bought a blonde wig. It was probably length past shoulders. So we trimmed it to be the right length, and then we had to Sharpie the bottom half. And that was painstaking. It took a lot of time. Hours and hours and hours. So people are so lucky these days.
Yeah, I did this cosplay later, and I just was able to find 2 wigs from the same manufacturer in the 2 colors I needed, and just like cut them apart and stitch them back together. So much faster.
Yeah. And actually, this is a picture at San Diego Comic-Con. I think this is 2003. So you can see the lobby. It's crowded, but it's not like shoulder to shoulder like it is now. So yeah, that is the lobby of San Diego Comic-Con. So before social media, nowadays you can click, upload, tag, share. You would go on cosplay.com, or maybe another message board that other people knew about that I didn't, and there would be a did you take my picture thread. So basically, if you had a digital camera, I did. So you could upload a picture of yourself. This is me. If you did take pictures, please send it to me, and that's basically how you got more photos of yourself. Very limited. Or you would have to describe yourself because not everybody had access to a digital camera. So I was always like going through all the threads, like, am I there? And then some people would be so gracious just post all their pictures there. And there weren't that many people taking pictures as well. The people that were taking pictures were mostly just fans of that character, or not even realizing what's going on. They're just like, hey, that looks cool. So this is the top right. The top left is a masquerade group. So you can see that the quality started improving massively. As you know, the masquerade at San Diego Comic-Con is one of the biggest and most competitive costume contests in the world. So that even became a huge thing. We were still lining up to get into the masquerade back in the early 2000s. So it was always the thing that you did when you went to San Diego Comic-Con. Obviously, you can't take pictures of that and share it. You would always have to wait for all of those to be uploaded. This was also when you would meet like friends that you met online, which is always like a weird thing. So that was starting to become a little bit more popular in the early 2000s. Let's see, the bottom right corner is from Anime Expo 2002. So it looks very, very bare there. The middle one is me and this really cool demon girl. I was like, whoa, she's way ahead of her time. That is Phoenix, what do they call it? Phoenix Cactus Comic-Con 2004, when they used to hold it in the Mesa Hotel. Yes, as you know, it is now Phoenix Fan Fusion. So that was pretty tiny too. I was like one of like 4 people dressed up there in my Battle Love outfit, and yeah, but it was a great experience. And on the far right is another Anime Expo costume fashion show. So that was just a walk-on. Again, not many cosplayers on stage, but it's growing. It's growing really fast. And this was still kind of a time where you didn't tell people you cosplayed. Like, hey, what do you do in your free time? Yeah, I walk my dog, And if someone ever saw a picture of you at work, oh my god, like at work or school, you're just like, oh no, my life is over. So it was a very underground thing still, and people did give you weird looks. I did get some weird looks. You know, like, what? You do what? Oh, that's weird. So we were chugging along.
I think it's really cool that these days you can walk into like a Walmart or something by yourself in costume and someone's like, oh, is there a Comic-Con in town? Like, it's part of like the actual ethos now. Like, people know, even if they have no idea who that character is, they just know now. And before it was like, what is she doing? Like, is that crazy person got security?
Like, they let him out of the basement, you know? So, this is why it's changed so much. So, World Cosplay Summit, has anyone heard of World Cosplay Summit? Yeah. Like, the biggest costume contest in the world, obviously it's called.
Amazing.
So it started in 2003 and only had 4 participating countries. Japan hosted it, of course, France, Germany, and Italy. So as you can see, Europe was kind of growing in the cosplay scene quickly as well. At this point, Japan is like already got cosplay pros. They're just like, the rest of the world doesn't have any idea what's going on. But yeah, it was amazing. I couldn't find any pictures from 2003, but with just 4 countries, I really want to see actually what it looked like.
I bet if you contact them, because World Cosplay Summit they keep archives and stuff, and you can ask them.
That would be awesome, actually, because I've never been to a World Cosplay Summit. I mean, that's just a dream to just attend. Like, I don't know if I'd ever one. That's like some hardcore stuff. Yeah.
I mean, these people spend a year planning. And then they have to compete at a local competition, or they have to travel somewhere in the U.S. that has a World Cosplay Summit preliminary, and they get their preliminary standing. They do additional work to their project, and then they travel to Japan, and then they're basically put on tour for an entire week, and then they compete. There's 3 rounds, so it's insane. But if you win, holy crap, the prizes and the money, it's a lot of the times it's equivalent to someone's salary.
Yes. And by this time in Japan, they already had cosplay idols. Mm-hmm. So there were already people, that were like big cosplayers that they were already inviting to their, events and stuff. So they were definitely ahead of the US.
Yep.
So as we go into the late 2000s, there was a huge change. Companies started realizing, wow, cosplay is really popular, and started developing products specifically for cosplay. And this blew my mind. I was like, whoa, so I don't have to make everything from, a block of foam. So yeah, it was incredible. CosplaySupplies.com. I couldn't find do you know when they started cosplay.com?
CosplaySupplies.com's been around, I think, a little over 10 years.
Yeah.
I think it's 10 years now. I want to say it's 2008 or 2009.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So you could go here and buy stuff. Again, they would take a while to ship. There was no Prime one day.
Like, there's actually Cosplay Pros in Arizona that started about 2 years ago now, 2 or 3, and they are local to Arizona, and they provide all the materials, like almost all the materials that Cosplay Supplies and Formula do. And they have their own version of like thermoplastic and stuff, so even some states have their own like local cosplay shops and material shops, and it makes it easier to acquire what you need.
Yeah, that was pretty awesome. And Arta wigs. If you are a cosplayer, Arta's kind of like the Mercedes-Benz of cosplay wigs. They started, doing pre-styled wigs that you could order. Obviously, they upped the game, had better quality, higher
wigs
quality.
that you can part them in any direction.
Yes, higher quality wigs in the crazy colors, because you can really only find those in, the natural colors for like the women that would wear it or whatever. So they really changed the game in wigs, and they even started making fully manufactured costumes. As you can see, Easy Cosplay, their logo is everyone can cosplay, which is beautiful. You could buy your full costume there. More people were, eager to start, because if you can't sew or you can't, I know a lot of people get discouraged because I can't do anything. Like, well, guess what? Now you can buy it.
Yeah.
Although it was still kind of taboo to wear a bot costume. Like I said, the elitism is going away, but it still kind of was there.
Yeah, and I think it's just because some people are like, well, I started back then. I'm like, that's okay. That's your own personal preference. As this becomes more popular, a lot of people enjoy it too.
Yeah, so there was also cosplay.
Plus, I gotta be honest, guys. No bot costume's perfect. You're going to have to make repairs. You're going to have to tailor it. If you're tall, good luck finding something that doesn't show off your bottom half. If you're short, good luck trying to get it to fit your torso.
Sam always has that problem.
I'm pretty much not busty, but I have really like curvy hips. So I put it on, and I know I'm always going to have to add 2 to 3 inches to the hips, and I'm going to have to do 2 to 3 inches out of the top. So I just take what I took out of the top and put it at the bottom.
She's so amazing at that. You just look at it and you're like, I know what I need to do. That's amazing. So yeah, you can buy it online, and Warbler. So Warbler's been around a very long time. It actually started as a material in steel-toed boots.
And it's non-toxic. It self-adheres. It has a low heat activation rate, which is great, so that people can work with it a little bit faster.
Yes. So advanced materials were becoming more accessible.
Yep.
So it just changed the face.
And there's so many different kinds of like after Warbler came out, other people realized, hey, this Warbler uses wood pulp. Well, now like Tandy Leather uses leather pulp, and like there's different products that are thermoplastics now. They realize they can take these scraps and materials that they have left over, they can recycle them, mix them with some adhesives, and turn them into thermoplastics.
Yes. So now we move on to Yaya Han. Has anyone heard of Yaya Han? Yes. Some people call her the queen of cosplay. She never coined that term herself.
She is tiny and the sweetest person in the world.
She is. She's awesome.
Yeah.
So she started cosplaying pretty early as well. I even remember asking her about her lum wig, and she's like, I can't even remember where I got it. So you can see that's still a popular costume. That's why I chose it. But she actually knew, kind of like, took the initiative to market herself, improving her skills. She started commissioning costumes. She doesn't commission costumes anymore, using professional photography. So she really, really grew fast. And the fans did that. She didn't do it. This is how it always happens. The fans did it. And she started, I first found her on cosplay.com. So whether you like it or not, she's a pioneer in cosplay. I know there's a lot of controversy about her. I just say that if you're jealous, it's just because you can't be as cool as she is. So I think it's amazing. Speaking of, we come to Jessika, and she's obviously also very controversial, way more than Yaya Han was, because she shot up in popularity like overnight. So as you can see,
so Jessica's really smart. What she did is she actually targeted the military, and she started making calendars, and she made a bunch of money, and then she started branching out from that money and creating different, more complicated outfits, and started competing. And then she got sponsors. So she figured out who her best target audience would be, and then grew from there.
super smart.
Super smart. If anybody has not known or worked with military people, military is full of a bunch of nerds, and it's awesome.
Yes.
Like I feel like the military is disproportionately nerds, and it's so awesome.
So Jessika showed up at San Diego Comic-Con 2009 in her sexy Pikachu outfit, and it's not like it hasn't been done before, but she was in the right place at the right time, and she just went viral. From that point on, she had grown a fan base. She was voted to be Lollipop Chainsaw's official mascot as Juliet Starling. And here's the thing, is that was at PAX. And when we talk about booth babes, again, I mentioned that they were usually models. So obviously when fans went up, like, oh my god, talking about all this stuff, and they're like,
Jessika knows what this is because she plays that stuff.
Yeah. So they kind of started transitioning out models completely. So booth babes were kind of being transitioned out. At PAX, there was a very strict no booth babes rule. So when they came with Jessika Nigri, that was also very controversial. Even though she was, a legit geek and was hired and is a cosplayer, very, very skilled cosplayer, people just hated it. Yeah. And especially when she came out with I don't know if you're familiar with this game, but her second outfit is like a pink catsuit with a zipper all the way down. So they actually asked her to go back and change. So
I feel like though the booth babe thing did kind of, in some ways, cause some of the schism between like some of the cosplayers and some of the non-cosplay nerd community, because they would go up to somebody that would be dressed as this character and that person knew nothing about it. Now I am the first person to say nerd checking is the worst. Like if I can't pop quiz you about the most obscure thing, then you shouldn't be wearing that costume. I'm totally not into that. But knowing zero about that character is also tricky. So you get a bunch of nerds going up to people and like being really excited and they knew nothing about it. So then they start making that association in their mind, like, oh, if somebody's wearing a costume, they're probably just here to wear the costume and they don't actually know anything about it. And it became like a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I think it's good that they turned away from it, or at least made sure that those people started to know actually more about that character. Like, hey, you got to at least be able to answer some questions about this character if you're going to stand
Yeah, they do hire now. They try and go for geeks to hire for booth babes. So in the 10s, Patreon had been around, popped up, and I think it was 2016. It popped up in 2013. So people started monetizing their cosplay. More and more people were monetizing it, building their fan bases, getting invited as guests. They were drawing crowds to these events. Media was covering cosplay. You can find them on BuzzFeed and whatever. This is actually, I'm on the cover of a magazine. I used to live in Dubai, so me and a, what's his name from Devil May Cry?
Oh,
Dante, yes. So Dante,
I was a demon. I'm like, wait, that's great.
yeah. So we did a photo shoot. They put us on the cover of a magazine. That was super, super awesome. It was being now spread out. Heroes of Cosplay, again, a lot of controversy. I don't know why. I do know why. So it was on TV, and now everyone could watch cosplay. And they kind of tried to give another look at it. Like, we're not just geeks that run around in costume. Like, they're skilled artists. They can compete. You can win prizes. So, we started getting a lot of that going on. You can buy full costumes now on eBay and Amazon. So that was where you can get the next day. It just became so much easier. And then gatekeeping was dropping. Inclusivity was
Because
rising.
more people realized that they didn't have to make this a full-time thing. They could do it as a hobby.
Yeah.
So,
And I feel like there's two schools of thought, and this is also just like a general thing, is you can either be like, okay, it was really difficult for me to do, so other people should have to suffer like I had to suffer to get where I'm at, because it's no fair that I had to suffer and you didn't have to suffer to get there. Or you can be like, wow, I really had to suffer to do this. I really hope no one else has to suffer like I had to suffer to get there, and that's
Most
that.
people are like that.
Yeah. So
most people are like, I'm so glad it's easier.
yeah.
Because it's also now easier for them too.
So developers started taking notice of the rise in cosplay. So as you can see on the right side, in 2013, Hideo Kojima, the creator of Metal Gear Solid, he designed this character named Quiet, and he was like, this is impossible to cosplay. Which now we look at it, we're like, whatever. So this cosplayer, I should have got her name, did it and tweeted him, and he tweeted back an acknowledgement. So now they're realizing, yeah, this can happen. Blizzard, obviously BlizzCon is happening this weekend, releases character reference guides.
Yeah.
Like
So does Gearbox Gearbox and like a whole like Borderlands, literally before the games even released, they're like, hey guys, cosplayers here, promote us, please, let us help our
Characters having turnarounds that are publicly available on the internet, because I have to say, like back in the day,
You make
like
it up.
trying to figure out what the back of that character's like you could literally watch the whole anime or the
Never
whole
see their
series
back.
and never see the back of their outfit, or there's like 2 shots. And you have to like pause it and be like, is that bad animation? Is that line part of their hair? Is that their arm? Is that the what is that?
speed line? I don't know. So this actually, the Overwatch reference kits are like 4 or 5 pages long for each character. They put them in T position and put like all
They
the
have pictures of the accessories too.
accessories, and as you can see, even color palettes.
Yep.
So these are just the default costumes, but I mean, you can go in the game too, and like you can see the characters' models 360. So they were inviting cosplayers in.
Yeah. So now instead of having to be like, crap, is this cool? Now it's like, no, please. Because if you wear it, then people are like, what's that? Oh, I should go check it out. And all of a sudden, more people are buying
I
it.
do feel like occasionally now, like video games and animes and everything are like, I want to make this as complicated as possible just to see if somebody can figure out how to cosplay this. This could just be me being like,
So we've got just a few more minutes, guys, but we are very close to the end. So what is cosplay today? Obviously, you see it everywhere. This is us, because we like to cosplay in a lot of groups. You cosplay from anything. I've got Bob's Burgers up there. Star Wars is still popular. At the far left is her brother in the power armor. I mean, you do so much.
My little brother, if you go to the new Fallout New Arizona Republic booth, and you see a big brown character, that's my brother.
Alright, guys, so let's take a look at this video.
Oh, hey, I'm in this one.
How do I play it?
I think you have to go to the other screen, so move your mouse way over to the right. Yeah.
It does everything. You can be anything. People even put their skills into it. So the guy that did I can't remember his name, but he's an actual martial artist. He actually goes to school. So we love that you can always incorporate it into your normal life, and we hope that you guys do too. So thank you so much for coming to our panel. I do want to say that video is by some really awesome friends, Pros and Cons, so please come get your stickers. They have a booth.
They're like, if you go to like AA89, they're there, and then you want to visit ThermoCosplay, she's usually with us too. We're AA73 just across the aisle.
So like along the back aisle, if you guys know where the zombie booth is.
Look at the zombies.
And we have a promo code for
Cosplay Pros. So if you come and get a coupon for me, you get 20% off your first purchase.
Yes. And then we have cards up here if you guys want, no pressure, but please go visit Pros and Cons. They are so awesome. I love that video.
Thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Creative Play and Podcast Network. And feel free to enjoy our other shows, such as D&D Journey of the 5th Edition, and Scion Ragnarok and Roll, a Scion hero to Ragnarok story. Thank you for listening.
Hello, this is Eric.
And Wendy Strog with Stone Valley Hobby and Games.
We sell board games, card games, role-playing games, and supplies. We have thousands of Magic the Gathering cards available, carry Kickstarter products, and work with veteran-owned small businesses to bring you our own line of products.
We are a small business retailer, but we offer competitive prices, a loyalty system, and free shipping on orders over $100.
As a military veteran myself, I'm a strong supporter of our armed forces, their families, and contractors out there doing the hard job. So any order from an AA, AE, or EP address will be shipped absolutely free.
Remember, StoneValleyGames.com, where we take your leisure seriously.